Hello and welcome to part 2 of DMA Decision Makers with Stephen Attenborough, who is the Commercial Director and Head of Astronaut Relations for Virgin Galactic. Stephen, thanks once again for joining us.
Good to see you again.
Last time we spoke about how you reach out to high net worth individuals who want to take the ultimate trip into space, but they're not your only customers. You recently announced a deal with NASA to deliver technology payloads on their behalf. Can you tell us a bit about that deal and how you went about getting it?
It's an interesting deal because I think what it says about our future business is, although we've been very focused to date on reaching out to what I would say would be the first readily available market, and that's the market for space tourism, individuals who want to experience space for themselves. The second arm of our business, if you like, the second market, will be for researchers, for scientists, for those involved in education, to do some incredibly important and useful work in space within our vehicles at a sort of cost and frequency that just has almost been unimaginable to date. And you know, we've always had a great relationship with NASA. I think fortuitously, as we have been developing our business, you know, there's been a sort of serious thought within NASA about what the agency is going to look like in the future. It has decided that as we come into the 21st century, you know, quite a lot of what they would call the near-Earth activities, some of the more routine activities, whether it's launching of satellites, whether it's taking payload up to the space station, whether it's about putting people into orbit, you know, that those things can perhaps start to be done more effectively and more efficiently by the private sector. And so NASA have been very supportive to this, you know, this emerging commercial sector that Virgin Galactic leads in some ways, I guess. And so we didn't necessarily have to go out and persuade them. You know, I think there has always been a relationship, and they have watched with great interest, you know, how our project has been developing.
Governments are often valuable clients, but painful ones to attain and to maintain. What advice do you have for companies trying to break into or to expand their business within government agencies?
The first thing you've got to acknowledge, I think, is that it's a very different market. You know, I mean, certainly if you compare the way that we go about attracting private customers, the government has got a process. And so I think, you know, the first thing you have to do is to really understand that process, because they have to go through, you know, the government has to go through a process of making sure that it is procuring in a diligent way. There is a lot of form filling to do, so you need to make sure that you've got people on board who are used to doing that, are going to be doing it according to the right timelines, are going to be giving the information that's really required. So yeah, I mean, our experience so far is that it's pretty time consuming. You tend to need to exercise some patience because there tend to be, you know, there's stages. But at the end, you know, at the end of the day, I would come back to the fact that saying, you know, that it's, you know, a government is made up of individuals. So your best bet probably is to get to know those people, you know, understand what their challenges are, what their requirements are, and just like any other market, you know, do your best to meet them.
And what role does digital play, if any, in reaching out to and maintaining your relationships with government agencies?
Government agencies, certainly that we're dealing with, you know, are pretty sophisticated in their use of digital media. These agencies are made up of people who are reading the newspapers every day. They're, you know, they're probably got they're linked to your Twitter feed. They're probably a friend on your corporate Facebook account. So all the work that you're doing for the sort of the general outreach, you know, if you just bear in mind, you know, that stuff is going to be read not just by your retail customers, but by your government customers as well. And I think when I'm talking about a process for making sure that the messages that are going out on social media, that there is a process, is partly about sort of understanding that there are going to be people reading those things in different ways and for different reasons. And then, you know, I mean, government departments tend to be pretty large. They can be quite complex, and so just, you know, the use of CRM systems, you know, to make sure that you know who's doing what, who's making the decision, you know, what the chain of decision making is, you know, who you should be contacting on a regular basis or whatever. You know, again, digital media is incredibly useful for making that process, which can be complex, making it as efficient and effective as possible.
Now, obviously, there have been some setbacks to Virgin Galactic's launch schedule. Commercial flights are now expected to commence around 2013. I'm not going to ask you to commit to that at all. But obviously this has an impact on your marketing communications and your astronaut relations. I'm sure they're all gagging to get on that first commercial flight. So how are you handling this?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one because we have always tried to keep very, very consistent in our message, which is that what we're doing is really hard. Richard said from day one, the North Star, the guiding star of this project was going to be safety. So if you really stick to that mantra that safety comes first, then almost by definition, you can't tell people when you're going to launch. Nevertheless, people like you always want a date. There is a real opportunity here to create a new industry. It's very, very important to get it right from day one. But going back to your question about how we sort of manage that, partly again, it's telling the story, and you tell the story warts and all. I mean, fortunately, we haven't had too many warts to talk about in this story. But if they happen, we'll talk about them. And I think that you gain trust, and it's what people expect from the brand if you do that. The other thing is that we make sure that our customers are valuing the period up to commercial operation almost as much as the flight itself. And the thing that, the comments from customers, which I've had a lot of actually, that persuades me that we're doing this properly is when they come up and say, look, I'm not too bothered about when I fly. I'm having such a good time now, just take as long as it takes. And that I think is the mindset of I hope, most of our customers, that they love the community that they're in. They love being an integral part of the project as it develops. We have to make sure that they understand that our foot is flat on the gas, but that we're not going to be cutting any corners that could compromise safety.
So do you think there's a right and a wrong way to handle negative publicity, particularly in the online social sphere?
Even if you wanted to, it's becoming very, very difficult to hide bad news these days. Because there's always going to be somebody out there, that'll hear something or see something, and they can spread it to the world almost as effectively as the BBC now. The respect that people have for the Virgin brand comes largely from the fact that they think they're getting honesty, that they know that sometimes things don't go well, and it's the way that you handle that, the way that the way that you're sort of honest about it and open about it, which may be difficult in the short term, but I personally am a believer that it gives you a much stronger long-term brand. I mean, we have again been fortunate at Virgin Galactic in a pretty high-risk experimental program that to date we have been things have gone pretty much to plan. So we have not had examples where we've had to go out there with a difficult message. But if we do, I'm confident that we will be able to do it, and I'm also confident that people will understand what we're saying and will stick with us.
Finally, Stephen, Virgin Galactic is creating a whole new product category. So what do you foresee for that category, its customers and its marketing communications over the coming years?
That's one of the most interesting but difficult questions to answer. But I think you can say in broad terms, if we meet our dual objectives, which we've had from day one, which is safety and commercial viability, then you'll see certain things happening. And the first that will be that there'll be a huge amount of private sector interest in this new industry. We have already taken on our first external investor who are giving us a very good valuation at a very early stage in recognition, I think, that this new industry has got amazing potential. But there is a big responsibility on us to get the first stage right. That's why we're taking our time, to be honest, because if something went wrong in a major way in the early days, it could be quite difficult to recover from that. If all goes well, we will see other people come into the industry, and the great thing about that is that additional funding and that additional money into the industry will mean that we'll see, I hope, a very rapid pace of innovation. So we will have competitors, and we love competitors. We'll be very happy if we have the first few years on our own, but eventually we would hope to have competitors because it'll be a mark of our success. And when you get competitors, you do get innovation, you get economies of scale, you get prices coming down, you get the consumer better served, and that's ultimately what we're here for.
Stephen, I could talk to you all day long, but I know you're a very busy man, so thank you for spending some time with us, and all the best in the future.
Thank you very much.
For more up-to-date news and views on the Asian digital marketing scene, visit digitalmarket.asia.